तड़का मार के रेडियो गरम मसाला.
Hello everyone, I'm back. I'm Kavitha from Radio Garam Masala, wishing all a very happy Diwali. Today I have here with me the legend of violin, the musical maestro Dr L Subramaniam. He's here in Perth and I'm extremely honoured and I'm pleasure to sit here beside him, interviewing him today. Thank you for the interview.
Pleasure being here, and nice to be in Garam Masala radio station.
Thank you so much. Thank you for giving us the time for this interview. How has your last few days been here with the Swan Festival of Lights? You've come here for Diwali, especially. The
last 3 days we played. Last 2 days we arrived 1 day before. Every day we were trying to do different things. They wanted us to do all 3 days. Since I had to go back day after tomorrow. So one day I did Indian classical.
Yeah.
It was wonderful. Swamiji used to love classical music and different things. So second day Kavitha sang and I played with a mixture of spiritual and Bollywood thing. Today it's going to be more of a fusion where it's all composition which I've done for US and other places. Variety of things today.
I know I heard that unfortunately I didn't get to listen to you this time, but I did hear that your show was absolutely mesmerizing and everybody thoroughly enjoyed it. What was your experience with the Perth audience here?
I've been to Australia general few times. In fact, I'm coming back next month. Next April I'm coming to play in Sydney Opera also. Perth is a very good cosmopolitan crowd is there because of Swamiji's Temple of Fine Arts and Annalashmi and Saraswati Mahavidyalaya. A lot of interest in Indian culture, a lot of very strong Indian community here. So you almost get a mixture of, our own people, Indians, then local people who are very, very musical because they've had the opportunity to listen to different things over a period of time. So it's not that you're coming and playing for a totally new audience. Partly, we feel very comfortable in these situations.
There's something that I've always wanted to ask. With your musical journey that you have, at the moment you do both fusion, you do Western classical and Indian classical. You started with Indian classical, Carnatic music. When did you start getting involved with Western classical? Because I know they're both two completely different, and like they say Hindustani and Carnatic are different. Same way Western classical is different to Indian classical. Would you like to tell us how your journey through that was and now what your experience is?
I'm rooted in our classical tradition, South Indian tradition.
Basic foundation.
Basic foundation,
yes.
Which is my father's guidance. And in fact, my father was responsible for bringing the violin to the forefront as a solo instrument. Before that, violin was basically an accompanying instrument.
Yes.
So art of accompaniment was totally different. It didn't need a virtuosic kind of performance or a lot of detail on techniques and things. You changed it to make it a solo instrument. So a solo career as a Carnatic musician took over. I played in different places. When I went to US in 70s, Ustad Alek Prakhan Sahab asked me to play Jugalbandis with him. So the journey of Jugalbandi started with Ustad Alek Prakhan Sahab. Subsequently, I played Jugalbandis with Bismillah Khan Sahab, Pandit Jo, Pandit Jasraj, Ustad Amjad Ali Khan. It's a series of different north-south we did. Then subsequently, of course, I've been doing a lot with Pandit Jasraj also, violin and vocal. The latest thing we have started doing is only alap, no accompaniment.
Raga alap?
Just raga alap, taking different ragas. We did it in India for my Lakshminarayana Global Music Festival. Subsequently, we did in US. When I go back, I have a concert end of this month with them. So like that, what happened with the fusion, I studied composition in California. I was asked to write all of a sudden for smaller ensembles. A very well-known producer, Richard Block, he produced a lot of other artists. He heard me and he said, you have a totally different approach. If you can do some fusion, I like to release it and things. Those days, because we were regularly playing with Malkatmani here and things like that, so we didn't want this fusion to be released in India. So I told him I don't want anything to go to India. He said, I'll give you the rights, but let me release in the US. So the fusion started like that. The first album, I said I'll have a piano and guitar, bass and drums, and I wrote for that ensemble. All of a sudden, we became one of the 10 best of the whole jazz and fusion genre and things like which I didn't expect. Subsequently, I was asked to do a project for a company which he was involved in. I did series of fusion album, one with Stephen Grappelli, which got a lot of conversation, which got a lot of attention. And subsequently, I was also asked to do an orchestral piece for a major orchestra in Los Angeles. So I wrote a piece, and from there, different orchestra. Then subsequently, Maestro asked me to write a piece for New York Philharmonic to play 4 days. So I wrote that piece, Fantasy on Vedic Chants, for my mother. So like the different orchestras, so almost my thing branched out to Indian classical, Jugalbandi, chamber fusion, and also orchestral thing. But as a composer, I enjoy doing it. When you write for an orchestra, it's a very, very intellectual process, and also you try to use a new direction that helped me to create the global fusion concept. Otherwise, it was east-west or north-south. So I was able to create that whole concept of global fusion because I was able to incorporate African element, Indian element, Iranian elements, and Chinese and Japanese. So that whole concept developed as a composer. So I really enjoy doing it. But playing my own traditional music, classical music, improvising, although you're playing alap just like that, that's my roots.
Did you face any challenges when you did that transition from classical music to Western? Because I know, being a classical singer myself, that they don't accept you that wholeheartedly when you have established yourself in Carnatic music.
Fortunately, it didn't happen to me.
Okay.
Because I took a solo route. So after playing solos in the US, when I went to US, I started regularly playing in major concert halls all over India, major festivals. Then I played fusion with people like Yehudi Menuhin in the United Nations, and people who were like very, very big legends, Stephen Grappelli, George Duke, Herbie Hancock, and people like that. So they didn't play with anybody else. They played only with the cream of people. So all of a sudden in India, people started saying, why don't you bring them to India? We also like to hear that. We are hearing only those days only LP and cassette. So many people who got the LPs and cassette, they started asking me to come to India. So I brought Grappelli and Larry Curiel to India in 80s.
Yeah.
So it was all along, people were asking for me to bring that. Subsequently, they asked me to bring the orchestra. Then when we started my father's festival in 1992, Lakshmarana Global Music Festival, we again started doing global fusion, which was very widely appreciated all over India, and we repeated in other countries. And this year we are bringing an orchestra from Latvia, 55-member orchestra.
Oh wow.
So those things, it's a lot of challenge for writing composition, which I enjoy doing. As a composer, and also our audience are fantastic audience in India. They are very, very, very open-minded, and they wait for that kind of thing every year. I do one tour every year like that. Rest of the tour different.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much for giving us the time. And we would like you to, on behalf of the Perth listeners, a small message from yourself to our Radio Garam Masala listeners.
Well, for all the listeners of Radio Garam Masala, it's a pleasure to be here. My great wish to all the members, all the viewers, all the listeners for a very, very happy Diwali and a very, very great, peaceful, prosperous, happy, harmonious New Year.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
रेडियो गरम मसाला तड़का मार के